First of all, thank you very much, the organizers, people at the McLean Institute, for setting up this amazing conference. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute to this with our symposium. It's a privilege to be here with the rest of the members of the panel. A great honor to speak after Eileen and the others who will be speaking after me. And I also would like to thank the audience, the participants who are listening to us. Thank you for your kind presentation. Yes, I'm indeed mostly a clinician, a clinical psychiatrist, and so I'll be speaking to you very much from that end and perspective. In my presentation, let's see if I can, okay. So with regards to disclosure statement, nothing really, just to say that I do a lot of video conference consultations these days, which is what I'll be trying to convince you to use in a sense. And I have no other financial or affiliations with regards to this work. The aims from my talk will be to first to make the case for this reshaping of the psychiatric consultation and bringing in a digital psychiatric consultation, and then I'll share with you what is our vision, really, what is our project, that what we're trying to build. When I say we, I mean myself and these people, these great collaborators of mine from Technical University. They are bioengineers, and we've been trying to build up this digital psychiatric consultation platform that I'll be speaking to you about. So how do psychiatrists classically see patients? Well, face to face. And is that fine? Yes, but there are some caveats, and I think these are growing. First of all, the sheer demand of psychiatric disorders, they are very common and increasing. Secondly, there is a lack of professionals in mental health worldwide, and that's well documented by the World Health Organization, for example. And there's simply not enough funding to invest in mental health. This is a chronic problem. Here in this slide, you see the graph is a picture of the growth in psychiatric consultations in Portugal in the last decade, and it's very significant. And this leads to a situation where we clinicians feel very time pressured, and we have 20 minutes consultations, sometimes less, and also, which is barely enough to do a proper assessment and management plan. And besides, we get to see our patients very far apart. The consultations I have long time intervals, and within this time interval, there's a black box where we don't really know what's happening to our patients. And all of this was made worse, as you know, by the COVID-19 pandemic, where patients were not unable to come into hospital for their consultations. The COVID pandemic was really a wake-up call for many of us in clinical practitioners in drawing our attention to that we can do this differently. Perhaps we can change our ways of working. So there comes telepsychiatry, and what's the definition? Well, according to APA, it consists of providing mental health care from a distance through technology, often using video conferencing, but also other means, like Eileen has already given us a glimpse of that with mobile phone apps and wearable devices, and this can involve anything from therapy session, psychiatric evaluation, psychoeducation, medication management, and it can involve registering all types of information and signals that can be recorded and then sent to distance and then be interpreted by a clinician. There is a strong argument that people have made that the telepsychiatry could fill in those gaps that I was mentioning to you a couple slides back, because of this imbalance between demand for services, mental health service, and the ability to provide those. So yes, conventional telepsychiatry, I mean, it's exploding really. What you see in the background of this figure is the results of a search in PubMed using the term telepsychiatry, and you see that from 2000 onward there's been a steady increase in published studies, and in 2021 it's exploded. And so there's growing evidence, an evidence base for the use of telepsychiatry with regards to clinical outcomes, patients and professional satisfaction as well. And that it has been used in various clinical situations and with various types of psychiatric populations. And I've mentioned this in this slide, just a few, and it really spans all psychiatric activity. But there are barriers to the implementation of telepsychiatry. There's an absence of long-term strategic plans. I mean, I'm not aware of any plan in the National Health Service, for example, here in Portugal, to implement video conference consultations in psychiatry, for example. There is a resistance to change, although my personal experience, my colleagues generally are very open to exploring these new technologies, but I've heard some people saying things like, it could interfere with a doctor-patient relationship. I certainly haven't felt it myself, but it's a matter for research maybe to explore this to answer these questions and the uncertainties. There are all sorts of other issues like reimbursement issues some people have talked about in this conference. Of course, there is an increased cost up front. The experience of staff, I think it's worthwhile pointing this point, to highlighting this point. I do think professionals need a bit of training in order to use these technologies effectively. And from my experience, there has been a learning curve. And we need more research, obviously. There's little RCT data in terms of personalized psychiatry. Who are the patients? Who are the patient groups? Or what are the patient characteristics that will have a better outcomes with this type of intervention? And what are the patients we should not be using telepsychiatry with? So moving on to what is our idea of how to really push forward with this digital concept of digital psychiatric consultation. I drew it out in this figure. So at the center, obviously, is the patient, and then around the patient, there's a whole set of instruments for gathering clinically meaningful information. So there's the smartphone, where we've built an app to gather some information. I'll explain a bit more about that later. But we thought also that it would be important to add an element of standardized tests through instruments. That's really to be able to compare better between different assessments and either between patients or within patient, to get a standard context and circumstances for a certain result for the test. And then, of course, the video consultation, which would be essentially same as an in-person consultation with regards to allowing a direct interaction between the patient and the mental health professional and the clinical interview. But we've added another layer, which I'll be telling a little bit more about it during the video consultation, with regards to extracting features from the video image that physiological and behavior features that could tell us indirectly about the patient's mental state as well. And so all this information is then concentrated in a database, and then the mental health professional is able to assess it, visualize it, interpret it through a web platform. So what types of data are we getting from the mobile phone? Well, I'm sure you're all familiar with this type of data already: active, passive data. Active data that patients need to participate, and then passive data taken from essentially mobile phone sensors. This is in this slide. Well, on the right side, you see the print screen from what our app looks like, and we've chosen to include some questionnaires, this particular questionnaires, because we're focusing very much on common mental disorder, depression, anxiety, essentially, and we thought that these questionnaires they captured key symptoms and also domains of the clinical picture. They cover side effects of medication, and as well as the patient functioning, which we think is really important. So they're brief questionnaires, this to do to being non-obtrusive to the patient, and favoring engagement of the patient, not being too burdensome to the patients. And then we've also we have been able to get passive smartphone data, and in this slide you see on the left side the sensors we've dabbled with, and then on the right top corner you have a day worth of raw data coming from the sensors for a subject, and then you can also see in the bottom the GPS signal from the subject, comparing the pattern of mobility between a work day and a weekend day, and you start to get a feeling of a meaning behind these patterns of data. With regards to the standardized testing I've mentioned in our digital psychiatric consultation, we've used this type of devices you see in this slide, commercial wristband, and a customized purpose-fit pen that we built with embedded movement sensors. And what are the standardized tests? We've come up with 5 tasks: breathing exercises, walking, a reaction time test. This is a visual reaction time on a computer screen. Writing a signature, and the trail making test, which many of you will know. And so we try to extract features from the movements of the patient whilst doing these tasks, and also measure the autonomic nervous system activity, which we know is influenced by depressive state. During the video consultation, I mentioned that it's the opportunity for the clinical interaction, but it's also where we try and measure more biomarkers. And João, who's doing the talk after me, he'll explain this to you in more detail. But essentially, we're looking at blinks, face movements, and this is because, as you probably know, that there's psychomotor retardation in depression that we think could be measured and be useful to assess and track patients longitudinally. Okay. In this slide, what you see is what the platform looks like when you access it. In the middle, there's the video image of the patient. This is not a patient, by the way. This is one of our students. And on the right side, you have these graphs. They are the metrics, the features being extracted.
Miguel, sorry, I think we are already exceeding the time.
I'm finishing. I'm almost finished. And we get this. We can see the features online, and then on the left side, there's menus that we can navigate and access the questionnaires data from the mobile app, like PHQ-9 series of data over the treatment course. Okay, so this is just it's my final slide, just to show some palette data that we have from a subject where we got this, and just for you to see how this graphic image looks like for the scores or for the questionnaires. So yes, I hope so thank you to everyone who's been working on this with us, particularly the students, and I hope I've been able to pass this message to you as to why we should go ahead with this digital psychiatric consultation and what it might look like. Thank you.